always remember that the reason that you initially started working was that there was something inside yourself that you felt that if you could manifest it in some way, you would understand more about yourself and how you coexist with the rest of society.
Good morning, and it is for us. It is now 10 a.m. and this is Boldly Feminine, and I'm Constantina Malia. My guest today is Ricky Blair. He's the CEO of Platform 7. And we're addressing an issue that's got to do with education today, higher education today, and a lack that Ricky saw from personal experience, and that he circumvented and decided to try to bring to a larger audience his solution. I'm going to start also just with some facts that I'm going to read off to you guys. So one of the things is private company leadership needs to increase the number of entry-level jobs based on skills assessments and versus certification, and develop relationships with local public institutions that includes two-year schools that charge modest tuitions. I believe that in California that's actually free, not even modest. And that's where you're going to find those deemed unremarkable with the potential to become remarkable, determine their path. So we're saying that it's time to give more ownership and control of the direction their training is, become self-determined to educate themselves in a field that is going to give them a way to make a living for life. I'm going to read you a quote from a pretty eminent academic called Scott Galloway. He's a professor of marketing at NY Stern in New York. He's a bit of a celebrity, has his own podcast, but he said university leadership and faculty should aim to help young people find their greatness. Part of that charge is to instill grit, perspective, a sense of curiosity, innovation, citizenship, and a comity of man. So the administration, in Scott Galloway's opinion, who is a professor, should be led by example. And he sees that as being a huge lack in academic circles right now. My take on what Ricky's doing is choosing where you want to go is the key to a king-size serving of indomitable determination. So you identified a bunch of characteristics that you thought were really important to helping groom someone to find their path and success. And I think one of the things we've sort of addressed there is how much of that is teachable or coachable and how much of that is innate. And so I'm going to let you start off by what happened to you.
Yeah.
You're from London, England, right?
I'm from London, England, that's correct. I'm from London, England. I think starting with the key part of my story was 16 years old.
Right.
When I left school. I left school at 16 because I failed school miserably, and I didn't seem to have much luck when it came to exams and passing exams. And I think the key part there is how demoralizing that was for me, and how the education system led me to believe, and I think this is the case for so many others, that if you fail in the education system, you're doomed. And something didn't add up to me, or add up for me, in the fact that I thought I had some ability and talent. I just didn't have much interest in what I was learning about, and I didn't seem to be able to, convert an exam into a positive result. So I left education thinking I had zero chance, which was horrifying.
So was there anything at school that you just sort of devoured because it was interesting, or was nothing interesting?
Sport was interesting, and I enjoyed maths. They were the interesting parts. But
did any teacher sort of see that in you and sort of give you more encouragement, or was just sort of like dead pool?
Maths, I tried my best. When it came to soccer specifically, did I think there was going to be a long-term lasting career in soccer? No. But I did definitely learn things in soccer football. I learned things in that field, which actually did help me.
That's interesting, because in the interviews I've heard of you use a lot of soccer metaphors and analogies, and I guess that's where it comes from.
I would say some of my greatest teachers or people that have inspired me or shown me how to, in inverted brackets, succeed in the real world have actually been football managers, leaders top people who,
Right.
I've seen them change people's lives, footballers' lives, young footballers' lives. They've heavily inspired me for sure.
Awesome.
And I actually would say that the way I view life, or I view business, the way I view change, has definitely been inspired by the world of sport in general.
So I'm going to let you continue.
I will
with
continue.
where
So what I was saying was I had this burning desire to prove that success or failure wasn't linked to the journey of education. And
Academia.
Yes, academia. And I made a promise to myself that some way, somehow, I'd find a way of succeeding. It was an internal promise, but I was determined to do it. And the first thing I did at 17 was I got a job in the world of commercial real estate. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, which was half the problem. Again, I didn't know where I was going with my life, which is
and
scary.
how many do at 16 or 17?
Not many do. I agree, very few do, but
yeah.
that's a huge problem in itself.
Yeah, there's so much pressure at such a young age. Like, this is make or break. You're already, if you are geared towards academics, you're asked to be choosing classes that predetermine what course of study you can go into. Because if you choose the wrong academic subjects in high school, you're not going to have the preparation to enter the programs you want once you get to college. You're going to waste maybe another year or two before you build up the credits you need in another division. I saw this all the time.
But I would add to that, you're asking people, in my case, to make a decision of what I want to do with my life. And
Yeah.
that decision, as we're saying, could impact the next 20, 30, 40 years of my life.
Yeah.
That's a big decision to make at such a young age when you're so ill-prepared to make those decisions. Another huge one, which I'm sure we'll talk about, is at that stage of your life, you're asking young people to sign up to something which could result in a huge amount of debt. In some cases, six-figure debt. That's a huge decision to be making at such a young age.
Agreed.
But
That's in England.
Yeah.
Is it equally financially onerous?
it's not as it's nowhere near as expensive
As in the
which
States.
is in the States, which is I think why it stands out to me what I'm seeing, and so much of the research we've done in the last 2-3 years in the States, it's so different to anything we've ever known in the United Kingdom.
Because of capitalism, the well-being of capitalism in the American system.
That could be
Well, I mean, right? Academics here are a huge business. It's a huge business.
I mean, I could jump into that there.
But okay, we'll just continue. We will get to that.
17 years old, commercial real estate. I'm a T-boy starting at the bottom, and I'm determined to succeed. And I'm reading books, I'm going to seminars, I'm meeting the most successful people I can literally get my hands on or get in front of.
So what kind of books were you reading?
Self-development, self-improvement, management. I was reading lots of autobiographies of people that I looked up to or I was inspired by.
Such as?
People that inspired me.
Yeah.
People, I mean, there were a couple of real estate people who not only built big businesses, but did a lot of like philanthropic work. People who wanted to give back as much as they took from the world, I'd say. I was always fascinated by people that succeeded in all different genres, all different fields, in sports, in in music, in business. And I was trying to understand, I think one of my obsessions or passions even at such a young age, people, not just people, but what made successful people succeed and what made failures fail. And I just wanted to learn as much as I possibly could because, as I said, that promise I made to myself, I was going to find a way of succeeding. So if I could get in front of successful people, I was relentless. I'd write to them, I'd go and see them in their offices, and I'd just ask questions non-stop. And then a year later, I had a very fortunate break. I met a serendipitous situation. I met a mentor. His name's Nigel. He was in his mid-50s at the time, and he was very, very successful in real estate. And we went for lunch. And after lunch, after me explaining to him where I was at, I was still this junior. I wasn't really sure what I was doing. I definitely didn't know what I was doing in the world of commercial real estate. And he literally told me he was going to help me. And he took me under his wing. And all of a sudden, I had a successful person teaching me what it takes to succeed out in the real world and teaching me all these things that.
Could you redact that to like 3 or 4 or 5 things?
I think that the two key ones, the ones that changed my life, which there were so many, but the two most important ones were from day one, he just instilled in me this thing. You do what you say you're going to do. And he felt so strongly about that. So that was integrity. So that was the first one. The second one was, and this is all he really wanted to do for me. In the education system, we are, we're in a system and we're told what to think and what to do or what we should do or what's expected of us or what's not possible for us. Putting it another way, I think as young kids, we're dreamers. Innately, we're dreamers. We think about what we want, where we want, what we want our lives to be, where we want to go. The education system, coupled with society, drills that out of us.
So I think what you described is imagination. And Einstein said imagination is limitless and knowledge is finite, right? Like, not finite, but it's acquired differently.
I would say that we are all creators and we all have a creative ability in us.
But you're saying that society beats it out of you.
1000%. I think it beats it out of us. I think we're told that those young dreams we had, there are lyrics, songs, words, movies made about it. There are that innate dreamer in us. That's all sort of washed away. And just going back to Nigel and what he did, he wanted me to dream again. And he basically said, like, he put it like this: if this is the life you want, if this is where you want to go because that's what society has shown you, there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. But just know, if it's of interest to you, you can have that as well. In other words, you can have whatever you want. And the way he positioned it was, life is like a menu. You get like a blank canvas. You get to choose what you want your life to be. And that is how it works.
So basically the law of attraction.
Yes.
Somewhat, yeah.
And you asked me what books I read earlier on. The law of attraction had a huge impact in my career.
So it's neuroscience.
Yes. Yes. And again, I talked about looking at successful people. It's amazing when you look at the patterns, how many people consciously or unconsciously are using things like, I say that, you say the law of attraction and manifesting.
Yeah.
The most significant part of that is actually setting the goal, setting the target, setting the dream, wording it in whatever way you want to word it. That is the key. It's something like 1% of the world population know what it is they want. That in itself it's sad, but it's not people's fault. We're not asked the question. Over the last 4 to 5 years, you'd be staggered by the reaction, the response I get when I ask this very, very simple question. What do you want? What do you want from your life? What's your dream? What's your aim?
So what are some of those staggering responses?
I don't know. I've never thought about it before. They sort of, people scratch their heads like thinking, I've never considered it before.
It's just too big.
It's too big. Is it too big? I think it is a big question, but it's
Yeah.
also one we're not asked enough. So he asked me that question, Nigel. And the third thing, which had a huge impact on my...
What did you respond when he said, what do you want? Do you remember?
I think I told him the life that was expected of me, the Northwest London suburban lifestyle, which by the way is a fantastic life. I wanted to have enough money to be able to do the nice things, have a nice life, have nice vacations, have a nice home, etc. And he said, that's fine, but there's also more. And I think he discovered that on his own journey, and he wanted to instill that in me. And I took it on board, and it was also, it lined up with some of the people I was inspired by, some of the success stories out there, some of the books I was reading. So I tried it. I started to use my imagination.
And what did that imagination say?
I could sit here saying I dreamt of all of it.
Yeah,
I think I started.
You started with something. There was something that took you on your path. By the way, I'm going to interject here that Ricky actually, at a very young age, what were you, 26?
I'm not sure what you're going to say. I did.
About your real estate company?
Yes.
26?
I started it at 24, 25.
24, 25, and sold it at?
30. And that whole thing was one
and
great...
broke the rules of real estate in London. Pretty much.
I basically took all the things I was taught and put it into that whole process. So what that looks like is, going back to Nigel, I don't want to dwell on him too much. We don't need to talk about it too much.
No, but I wanted to go back, at least give the audience an idea that why you were capable and what he instilled in you to start this process that took you to incredible success and independence. You know, money is also independence.
The third most important thing he taught me was you don't compete, you change things. You change the game.
I love that.
And so those were the three pieces. And
I think when in a previous conversation you brought that up, and I was like, so he taught you altruism, and he taught you, from my understanding, narcissism is when you're constantly competing with others. Altruism is when you compete with yourself, within yourself, to better yourself, improve yourself. And that takes you to a whole different level.
I agree with everything you've said there, but I think that was the single most important thing he ever showed me about changing the game. And if you look at that's what it's all about. You know, if you ask someone like Elon Musk, I think, in fact, he was asked a question, why is he still doing this? If, you know, like, why are you still driving yourself mad? Why are you still working? In other words, you've got so much money, why are you doing it? And his response, he sort of looked at this guy like he was crazy. And he said, is it not fun to change things? Is it not fun to do different things, to be creative, to be inventive? And he said, what's the point otherwise? It's not for the money. And he made a comment like, making the world a better place or leaving it in a better place than when he got here, that's what drives him. That's why he's still doing it. And if you look at some of the most successful businesses or products, they change. They don't even change the game. They actually create a brand new market or sector.
I agree. I think that the first thing that pops into my mind, though, as you're saying that, as corrupt individuals and corrupt politicians for whom changing the world is very self-serving. You know, can kind of go either way. Either you're trying to leave the world a better place, and whose criteria is that?
Whose criteria is that to leave it a bit
to say what's better?
That's a
whole philosophical question, right?
Yes, and people use it both ways.
You're right, but from what you've introduced about this mentorship, which is a huge component of Platform 7, the mentor that you were fortunate to have cross your path and change your life, who inspired you to be altruistic and not self-serving so much. I mean, I'm sure there's some self-serving part of that.
I agree with that, but I also, and we this is covered in a lot of our curriculums, the other thing he wanted to influence me on is the importance of giving and serving and selflessness and making an impact in the world, and in terms of serving others.
In terms of, that's a fulfilling life.
That's one thing he instilled in me. And people ask me what the meaning of life is, or people question, people ask that. I certainly don't know the answer, but if I was to have a go at it, if I was to have a stab at it, my answer would be, we all come here to serve in some way. We all come here we're all here to do something in a way.
If you're of good heart.
I'm sorry?
If you're of good heart. Because I would say that people that are not are there to suck up as much.
I don't dispute or disagree that those intentions aren't always used in the right way.
Yeah.
But I believe that giving and serving is definitely going to lead to a fulfilling life. So
was what Nigel was fostering in you really, really different than what you learned in your own family?
I think in terms of how, integrity and respect and work ethic, and the ability to succeed, I don't think I went without that. My parents definitely installed all those things, how to treat people, etc. But I think that Nigel took it to a next level in terms of the ability to dream, to create, and to be ambitious and to go for it in life.
So do you feel like you guys kind of had an agreement at that point, an unspoken agreement that you were in this dance for him to help you succeed and you to be the good student and listen?
There was zero agreement.
There was zero agreement.
Zero agreement. I think demonstrated that I was serious, that I was respectful, that I was asking the right questions, and that I was also absorbing and listening to what was coming back. So.
And you would see him how often?
We would see each other every 4 weeks. But we both, I think we both showed up, and there was definitely a mutual respect there of the process, but there was no agreement. But.
And that was ongoing until what was the name of your real estate company?
Hatton Real Estate.
Hatton Real Estate. And you sold out to Collier's,
International.
which is actually in Canada as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Although I see their signs all around the world.
Yeah. But your relationship with him was ongoing and is to this day. It never came to an end.
It never came to an end. It's been consistent, and it carries on to this day. And I think Nigel's 72, 73 now.
So tell me a little bit more about the jump, the leap from Hatton Real Estate to Platform 7. What happened there?
Real estate was very good to me. Real estate was a platform to go on to do what I wanted to do and what I was passionate about doing. And I always wanted to have an impact in the world in some way since I was young. So that was always an aim of mine.
Why was Hatton Real Estate so successful? What did you guys do? Because you kind of broke the mold there.
We basically
you had partners.
I had 2 partners, and all 3 of us dropped out of school at a very young age. I think we were all 16, 17 years old. And we set up the company at 24, 25 years old, and implementing a lot of the things we've just discussed. We just put that all into the mix. And what that looked like was we were super ambitious with our visions for the company. We wanted to change the game. That was an ambition. We looked at the existing landscape. We looked at the existing sector in central London and the commercial real estate and how it was done, how it was operating. And fortunately for us, the sector, it was behind the times. It wasn't up to date.
I'm going to jump in a little bit and say, from what I understand, real estate, I'm going to make a comparison to my universe, which is fine jewelry. It's very traditional and almost archaic in the way it's bells and whistles work. And you guys come in your early 20s and you're like, well, we're not even listening to this because it's old, right? And you decided to make it more relevant. So real estate at that time, you could see residential offerings in a way that was not directed towards commercial offerings. And so you guys started to attack the commercial real estate offer.
In the same way.
In the same way.
And everyone told us we were crazy to try and do something differently. And everyone told us it had all been done before.
Yeah.
But we really didn't give a shit. We just went the other way. And I think at that age as well, we were fairly fearless. We had nothing to lose. And we just looked at it and we didn't listen to anyone. And we irritated a lot of people. When you've got contemporaries or competition, more so than contemporaries, that have been doing it for 20, 30, 40 years, and these young 24, 25-year-olds come along and do things differently, that irritates people. But we didn't give a shit. And we just, our thing was, we didn't care. We would never do something because that was the way it was done. We challenged everything. And we pioneered and changed things and implemented and introduced new aspects to the business. And the truth is, like any sector, like any business, the rest followed suit. So they followed our lead and they did what we were doing, but we kept innovating, we kept changing the game. And that led to we had a big dominant hold on a big market in central London. We were a very small niche player. We were a niche company. And to add, just as a FYI, as a way of thanking Nigel for helping me, and for the other 2 guys, actually, my 2 other business partners, Sean and Michael, they were all given an opportunity by someone at 17 or 16 in Sean's case, actually, years old. And we felt duty bound to pass that on and give others an opportunity. So we would only employ people that we could relate to, young people that were being let down by the education system or that had dropped out of the education system or were as lost or scared or confused as Michael, Sean and I were. And we recruited them. I never looked at their resume. I didn't care what they did in the education system. I knew what I was looking for. And all the things that I was taught by Nigel and by all the things I'd accumulated, I just passed on to these guys. And what was it? We got to a stage where the revenue was going. All the big corporate businesses couldn't touch us. They tried to dominate our market, and the only way they could do that was by buying us out and taking us over. But we just kept visualizing these aims and targets for the company. And we received offers from these companies. And listen, for a guy that left school at 16 that had no chance, all of a sudden to be receiving 7-figure offers from the biggest real estate companies in the world, and there were, I think, 3 or 4 companies made us offers.
Right.
But
you were the one that sort of, I mean, it's interesting because this is the first time I've heard about your love of maths at a young age, and that sort of makes sense of how you were the numbers guy, which determined the success of all of this. I mean, your partners, when I listen to the interviews, speak of work ethic, but you were the visionary. You were truly the visionary when I look at those stories and how that played out, because you said you took time off, you didn't even tell them what you were doing, you just ran numbers, and said, this is what we need. And if you hadn't had the ability to do that, the outcome would have been very, very different.
I agree with you, but I think the key part there was actually setting the vision of the target. It helped. I knew my numbers and knew my maths.
Yeah, but you knew where you wanted to go.
Always. Every single year, we knew exactly where we're going. We always had a target, I always had personal targets where I wanted to improve in the business. We had department targets, we had company targets. We always knew where we were going next. And I actually think that a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of business people, they're great at what they do. They may be great at selling homes, or they may be great at recruiting staff, or they may be good at finance. But when it comes to running a business, firstly, we're not really taught it in an effective enough way. But I guess
not even in business school, I can say.
No, but the biggest piece of advice, if you want to change any business, set a target or a North Star or a goal or an aim.
As an athlete does.
If you look at some success stories, especially successful people that knew what they wanted to do at a young age. If you look at, say, I don't know, Serena and Venus Williams, or let's start with them. In fact, in their case, they didn't even dream. They were told what to dream. Their father had a dream for them.
Right.
So they knew I don't know what 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, they were already dreaming of being number 1 in the world, and they were already dreaming of winning Wimbledon because that was drilled into them. There's countless stories like that.
So now we're going to jump to Platform 7 and why you think you can instill that in somebody else. And now that's going to be the game changer in terms of, so I'm going to let you introduce Platform 7, what it's about, what you want to do with it, and how it's going to work.
Okay, so
you still have Hatton Real Estate on the back burner, is that correct?
No, I sold the business 5 years ago. I have been working with young entrepreneurs for the last 4 or 5 years. I moved to Los Angeles in the middle of the pandemic in September 2020. And my ambition, my aim was, everything seems to improve in the world. Everything seems to upgrade or develop or change. But my frustration is the education system that let me down however many years ago, 20 years ago, and that everyone seems to moan about and complain about. That is my interest. I've always been fascinated why we don't get taught what we should be taught, or why we're not prepared in the way we should be prepared, or the fact that it's not just in the US or the UK. Globally, people moan about the education system or criticize the education system, which clearly isn't working, but no one's doing anything about it. So my ambition was to come to America and actually be that person.
Why couldn't you do it in the UK?
Why can't I do it in the UK? I think that I've just got a very funny feeling that what we are creating here is very conducive to a place like Los Angeles. Also, I think that America, are more open-minded to change. More
entrepreneurial?
Entrepreneurial, but also the American dream where anything's possible, the rest of it. that there's, that's kind of, I think, a little.
And the Wild West is the ultimate pinnacle of that.
Yeah, and also I've always had this thing about Los Angeles and what's creative, not just LA, California. It's a very creative place, and you seem to meet like-minded people. And
Right. I agree.
even right now, we're so early on in this business, but we have a global student base from the US to Canada, all around Europe.
So we're going to go back to Platform
Sure.
7 and that list.
So if I'm to drill into the main challenges in the education system, I see three things. One is young adults are not learning what they want to learn about, the actual topics that they want to know, that they feel will prepare them for the real world. Two is it's taking up way too much time. Forget how many years you spend in education period, just college. You're committing 3 to 4 years of your life. It's a lot of time, especially that's that important key stage of your life. And three, it's way too expensive. We can talk about statistics, but I think the average student debt is $40,000 or $41,000. I think student debt across the US is now at like $1.75 trillion.
I think we have a graph or something like that we could pull up. Yeah, here we go.
I mean, that's demonstrating inflation and the fact that, what is it? I think inflation's gone up by, it's just disproportionate.
Yeah.
I think it's gone up by like 1,100% since 1980. Inflation
1,100%
in education.
in education.
I can't remember what general inflation's been since then, but it's
Not 1,100%.
definitely not 1,100%. So those are the three pain points.
So you think that higher education is making a gross profit on education? That seems to be the opinion of many in academics.
Higher education is a business.
Yes.
And higher education is, it's in my opinion, it's a scam. It's genius though.
So that's why, like, especially here in Hollywood, we have celebrities paying a lot of money under the table for their kids to get into the right school because they're not technically qualified to enter these academic programs.
Yes.
But with enough bribery, for which their parents have gone to jail, that somehow worked out.
You're wasting years of your life.
Yeah.
You're not getting what you paid for, not getting what you want,
They're
and you're in debt.
They're absolutely not getting what they paid for because they're bribed their way into a system.
So why are people still going, and why does it still work?
I don't know.
Okay, so there are a couple of thoughts that come to my mind, and I'm not best placed to comment on this, but I know there's this push in the US. It could have been 20, 30 years ago where it was like they demonstrated how going to college means you will earn an extra, I think it's like $1 million over your lifetime. Secondly, it's very clearly obvious. I mean, we have done the research. One thing that stands out like a sore thumb is the main reason young people go to college is for their parents, because their parents want them to go.
Right.
That is old thought process. That's an old mentality. And the third thing is,
Was that why you wanted to go?
I never wanted to go to college.
No, but
I mean, if I could have gone, everyone else was doing it. Everyone
Right.
else was doing it. I think, yes, it probably made my parents proud. But
Were your parents discouraged and disappointed in you? Did you feel anything like that when you didn't get in?
no, not in the slightest. They were very supportive, and I was very lucky in that respect.
Okay.
Very
so
lucky.
Let's go back.
And the other thing is that it's the thing everyone does.
Yeah.
American kids, they go to college. So it's, you don't tend to go against the crowd in life. And that is, all those reasons why this machine, this scam is working effectively, and it's still, well, I say it's still working. Now we're starting to see the cracks.
What are the cracks?
The cracks are, I think, opting out was was trending on social media.
So students are dropping out.
Yeah, that's one thing. Two, people going to college, forget the education. I mean, this isn't obviously for everyone, but a lot of people were more interested in having a good time, meeting friends, networking.
Yeah, there's a huge story about how many bars are close to campus and
That's been taken out. Also,
because of COVID.
because of COVID. So everything's changing in the world, it seems. A lot of things are changing post-COVID, but it's definitely having an impact on the younger demographics' views on college.
So pre-COVID, a lot of education was already geared towards online classes, which, you know, I think we can all question the validity and value in that sort of academic process, right? Independent of the fact that we had a pandemic after that. But the trend was already towards
I would say the
online,
same as working from home. It was slowly trickling and starting. People were doing 1 day a week here. I mean, my real estate background, I started to see that.
Yeah.
The pandemic, COVID, was the final straw. But also, I think, you know, I saw people in their latter stage of their life, their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, for the first time in their lives, questioning where they're at. Are they on the path they want to be on? Are they doing what they enjoy? Are they living the life they want to be living?
But that was starting before COVID.
Yeah, but I think what COVID did, based on the people we worked with, COVID made people pause and reflect on where they're at and actually consider their options and consider where they're going. I feel the same thing happened to the younger demographic. Do they want to go to college? Is it worth it? Do I need it? They were asking themselves that question, and I feel like that's where the shift has come.
So my perception, independent of having met you and having any conversations about what you're doing with Platform 7, I was passing that sort of information on to friends and family because when I would come to California, I could see that trend beginning, and it really interested me because I too have friends that weren't geared towards academics and were treated like they were lesser than or going to be the dependent on the family because they didn't have the academic background that others did in their family. Kids that have learning disabilities who are super bright, but because of their way of assimilating information, didn't fit in a traditional system and were treated like lesser humans. That's the only word for it, right? If you have dyslexia or something, you can't go through a traditional system. And so they have no place, right? And they're, again, discarded almost. There isn't really a system in place for them. So anyway, what you were picking up is that this is I think, is a more forward-thinking society, like you said, more creative California. And so that was already starting to germinate, that you didn't have to have the academics. It was starting to be already talked about. You didn't need to have the academics to start to look for work anymore.
Yes. I think that was already shifting for sure.
Yeah.
But I think the game changer in this country, in the US, and it hasn't been as big a problem in the UK. In the US, it's very much a case of if you do not have a college degree, or this was a historical view, if you don't have a college degree, you don't have much chance, you're unemployable. All of a sudden, you've got some of the biggest businesses in America now saying we don't look for the degree. It's not as important as it used to be. We'll look beyond that.
So you're seeing that from the biggest companies as well?
Yes.
It's not regional.
I'm seeing.
Well, Elon Musk, for example, Tesla says that.
Tesla's a great example.
Yeah.
Tesla's. I know Apple. You've got. I mean, I haven't got the list in front of me, but it's happening more and more and more. And also, Platform 7, we're meeting businesses who are clarifying the fact. You know,
so how are these businesses meeting you? How is Platform 7 even getting on their radar? I think there was an article that Forbes did on you in August. That was one catalyst, but that's very, very recent. So what's gotten you in front of people's faces?
I think Forbes had a big impact, had a big reach out. Word of mouth, I meet a lot of people. I'm telling people what I'm doing, whether it's in the UK or the US.
Well, that's how we met.
Exactly. And also, it's a big aim of mine to provide an alternative to a failed education system, to try and change a failed business system, a failed system.
It's super personal to you.
Yes. I mean, I feel very passionate about it for obvious reasons, but someone with such a big goal, aim, or ambition, or dream, I think in most people's cases, you question that or think, how serious are they, or is that even really possible? But maybe I have a bit of a track record. I've already changed the game, I've already changed a sector.
Right.
So it's just applying the same logic.
So kind of an Elon Musk.
Yeah.
I'd agree, right?
Yeah. It's right for it. It's required. And all we're really doing, it's not some rebel in me that wants to go out there and change something, or I'm so irritated by the scam system that's in place, which I am irritated by it because it's unacceptable.
I think we have
sorry, just to say, I'm all Platform 7 is doing is responding to what people want. We're just creating a solution to that problem.
I agree. There was a presentation I did a couple of months ago, and one of the questions from the audience was from the mediator was, whose responsibility upon? The companies to take responsibility in this sector, or is it upon the consumer? And I jumped in, I said, the responsibility is on the consumer. The company is going to produce, or the market's going to provide what the consumer wants, or else it's dead in the water. That's I think what we agreed on.
I'd agree.
Yeah. I think we have a graph also for student dropout rates. Or this is actually hourly compensation.
I think currently it's at 50%. I think it's about 1 in 2 currently.
I think I read the same.
Which is the highest out of any developed country in the world, from what I've read.
The United States. And then we also have the depression rate, right?
It's something like 1 in 3.
Depression.
1 in 3? I can't say it clearly enough.
Yeah, it's huge.
But I can add to that. It's depression rates. It's dropout rates. It's debt levels.
Right.
It's
That's a trifecta.
It's a lack of fulfillment.
It's the trifecta.
Yes. Something's clearly not working here.
Yeah.
So we can carry on doing the same old formula, but it needs an upgrade.
So again, what's Platform 7 going to do?
Platform 7 is going to provide and teach the topics and tools in order to succeed out in the real world. It'll give you the playbook we should have been given. It'll give you the platform to go and have a successful life.
Can you iterate that? What is that platform? What is that? What are those tools?
We have created curriculums.
Okay.
We've created curriculums that will help different people in different scenarios. And the two scenarios we're seeing are ones who are lost, confused, despondent, depressed, and don't know where they're going or where they're at or what's next for them, what the next step is. That's one category. And the other are very ambitious, very driven people. They're the two categories that we're seeing. And
are you seeing more success with one than the other?
We started with lost, confused, demoralized, not sure where they're going. There's a huge market for that. But there's been this pull the last 2-3 months. There are ambitious people, driven people, entrepreneurial-minded people that in some cases are already on the right path or having some level of success. But they're crying out for the guidance and the curriculums and the tools and the teachings that they weren't taught.
And so this curriculum is how long?
We have curriculums that last for 2 months.
Nothing surpasses 2 months. 2 months is capped.
Well, the curriculum length is 2 months. There are different curriculums they can take on. So if you want to go from lost and confused to, eventually we're going to be coming out with an entrepreneurship course. I'm doing an event in the Netherlands in January where I'm going to be speaking to 300 entrepreneurs. They want to learn about entrepreneurship. They want to learn about all these principles, these real life principles, how to implement that in their business. All the tools we just talked about, goal setting, manifesting, service, when you give, you get back. If you can apply that into a business setting, it's a game changer.
Having spent a lot of time in Europe and being super frustrated by the bureaucratic systems there, and I see how people perceive me there, which is I'm a unicorn. Like I just don't exist because a young female entrepreneur that's built her own company, unless you've inherited money, you just don't make it. And so what you're doing is kind of taking an American system overseas and saying, this is how you do it. This can work over here. You're just never being taught how.
Correct. 100%. Can I just give you one brief little story?
Sure.
The owner of Pret-a-Manger. Pret-a-Manger is a sandwich chain in I think
we'll tell the audience, but you and I know
they're UK based. I think they've got some stores in New York, etc. They're it's like
a sandwich shop.
Yes, it's fresh,
but
made
nicer.
on the day. Yes, made on campus every day. Sandwich place, and you literally in London especially every like 200 yards you see
Yeah.
another one. It's like
Right.
Starbucks here.
They're all over Europe.
Yes. And the owner of this business, he is a British guy, very impressive guy. And he talked about his success. I watched this in a podcast recently. He created a £1 billion business in Pret-a-Manger. £1 billion business in England is very different to doing it in the US because it's such a small, it's quite an achievement.
Yeah.
And he was talking about
We
how
have to remind people that England is the size, or the UK is the size of what?
I could embarrass myself here, but there's 50 million people in
Like Idaho or something?
I mean, how many
Land
in
mass?
California?
Yeah.
It's a small country.
Yeah.
It's a very small country. And he was talking about all the things he did differently and how he, I think he failed in school and he was dyslexic and he thought he had no chance.
There we go.
That story comes up again and again and again. ADD, ADHD, dyslexia.
Yeah.
And one of the things he talked about, that he was getting offered to be bought out. And I think they questioned one of the ways in which they conducted business. And what that looked like was this. They had this company program or scheme where every single member of staff behind every single till in every single chain, they had to give something away for free in the day. They had to give a certain amount of items away in a day. Could be a coffee, it could be a sandwich, it could be a croissant. Who do they give it away to? It could be someone that gave them a smile, or someone they liked, or someone they fancied, or someone that looked like they were having a bad day and they could perk them up a little bit. And basically, managers would go into these stores and would tell their staff to stop doing that because it's going to impact, profits, and they cared about the profits. But the owner of the business wanted to police it so that he had a button on the till so he could see what stores were giving the most away. And what he saw in his results, when they got offered to be bought out, this big company said, why would you do such a thing? And he said, I can't justify it. Business school won't teach it to you, but I just innately know that this shit works. And when they looked at the results from all the stores that gave the most away made the most profit. And the reason why I'm telling you that story, it's an amazing story. But the reason why I'm telling you that story is because that's one of many simple things they're not teaching you in business school, entrepreneurship school, college.
No, absolutely not. Because I went to entrepreneurship school, and what entrepreneurship school does is how to be corrupt.
But when we say we teach the topics that we should have been taught, the list is endless. But you don't know what you don't know, and it's just time. It's time to. I'm like. I know.
I don't know. We're both laughing because, for one, the validation of our group here, but also it's uplifting. It's uplifting, and I'm so glad that I had you on because it is inspirational to have somebody on who's changing the game.
Thank you. And what can I say? This is what you do this for, right? You like change, and you like to challenge things.
Change things for something better.
Sure. So
and to give a level the playing field and give more people opportunity to succeed. I mean, it doesn't get better than that.
Absolutely. I agree.
So we didn't cover everything because we kind of chatted, but I think it's going to give a pretty good overview to why I wanted to have you on as my guest. I personally am more the academic focused person. And I'm going to say that one of the reasons is because as a girl, I was very disenfranchised. And so for me, the only way to validate my abilities was to get a degree against sometimes learning things that had absolutely no interest to me. I needed that piece of paper. However corrupt it was, I wanted that piece of paper to validate that I had a brain between my ears. So we're coming at it from very different perspectives, but coming basically to the same conclusion, which is finding a way to give people the opportunity to realize their potential.
Absolutely.
So thanks so much for being on today.
Thank you.
You guys are going to leave some post notes on the podcast where you can find a link to Platform 7, to Ricky Blair's company and educational system. This is also part of my brand is Malia Collection. The jewelry you see on me today is available on my website. We're actually having an offer right now because the holidays are coming up, which I very rarely do. So please take a look. And hail to the entrepreneurial spirit. I think we're all on the same page that that is something achievable. Thank God for this geography we were born on.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. So thank you so much for joining me today. This is Constantina Malia with Boldly Feminine. You can find me on all the social networks like Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Boldly Feminine, at Boldly Feminine, at Malia Collection is my first brand. And you can find the podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, iHeart, Amazon Music. And please feel free. None of the information shared is in my interviews is meant to be professional. It is colloquial, or conversations are ad hoc, and I don't want you to take them as newsworthy so much as conversational. Thank you so much for joining me. I can't wait for you to tune in for the next time. As you can tell, the conversations are always diverse and informative, and I hope fun as well. So thank you, and we'll see you soon.